Most fairy tales begin with once upon a time. But Nova's story didn't begin with magic or wonder. It began with silence. Not the kind forced by fear, not the kind demanded by power, but a silence she chose. At just 10 years old, she sealed her lips and locked away her voice, as if speaking itself had become a danger too great to risk. And for 9 long years, she never uttered a single word. 8 of those years were spent inside the palace of the Alpha King, where she existed like a ghost, unseen, unheard, and easily forgotten. By day, she scrubbed floors until her hands burned and folded linens no one would remember she touched. By night, she drifted through the stone corridors like a shadow, careful, precise, invisible. To the courtiers, she was nothing more than another servant. To the nobles, she barely existed. And to the king, she was no one at all. She never intended to fall for him. How could she? She was just the mute girl who poured his tea, the one no one looked at twice. But love doesn't ask permission. It invades, it consumes, it decides for you. And her heart, stubborn and reckless, had chosen long ago. It belonged to a king who didn't even know her name. He never spared her a glance, and deep down, she told herself that was for the best. Because Nova wasn't just a servant playing a role. She was something far more dangerous, a princess hidden in plain sight. And her silence. It wasn't weakness. It was a sacrifice. Because the truth was darker than anyone could imagine. If she spoke, even once, her brothers would remain cursed forever, trapped in the bodies of wolves. To save them, she had to endure the impossible. 6 shirts, woven in secrecy, in silence, in suffering. Every thread carried pain. Every stitch demanded control. Every passing day tested her resolve. So maybe this isn't a fairy tale at all. Maybe it's something older, something crueler. A story soaked in blood and magic, of wolves and witches, of curses that don't fade with time. Or maybe, it's simply the story of a girl who loved too deeply, for far too long, knowing she would never be loved in return. Because how could an Alpha King ever notice someone like her? A girl who cannot speak, cannot call his name, cannot even whisper the truth she's carried for 8 unbearable years. How could he ever see what's been right in front of him all along? Moonlight poured over the royal gardens like liquid silver, turning everything it touched into something unreal, almost dangerous. Beneath its glow, the wolfsbane flowers shimmered softly, beautiful, delicate, and deadly. Nova moved among them without a sound, her presence as light as the wind itself. She chose only the finest stems, her fingers careful, deliberate, so precise that by morning, no one would suspect anything had been taken. 8 years of sneaking through the night had taught her patience, had shaped her into something sharper, quieter, more controlled. From the distance, laughter and music drifted through the air, spilling out from the ballroom where the court celebrated the king's return from war. Even the guards had grown careless tonight, lingering by the windows for glimpses of the festivities. The gardens, for once, were empty. And that made them dangerous in a different way. The sap burned the moment it touched her skin, sending a sharp, familiar sting through her fingers. Wolfsbane wasn't just poisonous, it was lethal to shifters. One wrong move, one careless mistake, and it could kill. But Nova didn't flinch. She never did. Instead, she continued, filling her pouch as if pain no longer mattered. This is for Caden, she thought, her chest tightening at the memory of her eldest brother. Once a prince, now a wolf with silver streaks still marking his former nobility. And this, for Liam, her youngest, whose spirit refused to break even after 9 years trapped in a form that wasn't his own. When the pain grew unbearable, she closed her eyes and let herself remember, just for a moment, what they used to be. Their voices. Their laughter. Their warmth. 5 shirts were already complete. The 6th was close, so close it almost hurt to think about it. Just 1 sleeve remained. 6 more months of silence. 6 more months of hiding, of suffering, of pretending she didn't exist. Then they would be free. Then everything would change. A twig snapped. Her entire body went still. Instinct took over as she slipped into the shadows, her breathing shallow, controlled, barely there. Someone was coming. Not a guard. The steps were too calm, too confident, too deliberate. Whoever it was, they didn't fear being here. Then she realized. Only one person walked like that. The king. She should run. Any servant caught here after dark would be punished without mercy. But when he stepped into the moonlight, she froze, not from fear, but from something far more dangerous. He looked unreal, almost otherworldly. His sharp features, his controlled strength, the quiet wildness in his eyes. It was impossible to look away. He moved like a predator at rest, powerful, restrained, dangerous. This wasn't the first time she had seen him like this. In 8 years of silent watching, she had learned him in ways no one else had. The tension in his expression when something troubled him. The rare softness in his gaze when he spoke to children. The kindness he hid from the world. She had seen it all. And that was her weakness. Because she didn't love the crown. She loved the man. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. Her father was dead, and the accusation came fast, cruel, and deliberate. Morwen claimed they had poisoned him. Before grief could even settle in, the guards were already on their way. There was no time to mourn, no time to understand. Only time to run. They fled into the darkness, vanishing into the dense forests that bordered their kingdom, trading royal halls for shadows and survival. For 3 relentless years, they lived like hunted animals, never staying in one place long enough to feel safe. Nova's childhood didn't fade, it was ripped away, replaced by hunger, fear, and lessons no child should ever learn. Then came the night everything shattered completely. The night Morwen's witch hunters finally found them. Nova squeezed her eyes shut, but the memory still clawed its way back. The clearing burned with unnatural witchfire, its glow casting twisted shadows across the trees. Her brothers shifted into wolves, their bodies contorting in pain as they placed themselves between her and the approaching danger. And Morwen, she laughed. Not with amusement, but with something colder, something monstrous. "Let your beast forms become your prison," she had declared, her voice echoing with power that felt wrong, unnatural. Silver light swallowed the 6 princes whole, their human forms erased in an instant. Their minds remained, trapped, aware, helpless, imprisoned inside bodies that were no longer theirs. Only Nova had survived untouched, hidden beneath fallen leaves, thanks to Liam's quick thinking before his transformation. She had lain there, unmoving, barely breathing, as Morwen declared her dead, and her brothers nothing more than mindless beasts to be hunted for sport. That same night, something impossible happened. Her grandmother came to her, not in flesh, but in spirit. In a dream that felt more real than waking life, she revealed the only way to break the curse. 6 shirts, woven from silver wolfsbane. Absolute silence until the final stitch was complete. No mistakes. No second chances. That was the price. Nova wandered alone for months after that, searching desperately for enough of the deadly plant to even begin. Hunger, exhaustion, fear, none of it mattered. Until she heard whispers of King Daemon's gardens. That was her salvation. Abundant wolfsbane, and a place where she could disappear. Taking a position in the palace kitchens gave her exactly what she needed: access, anonymity, and time. And now, everything was repeating. Watching Morwen circle Daemon in the ballroom, Nova felt something cold settle deep in her chest. The witch moved like a predator sizing up her next kill, her smile too perfect, her gaze too calculating. Nova had seen this before, every detail, every step. First charm. Then control. Then destruction. Silverist had not been enough. Morwen wanted more. She always did. And now, she wanted Ironhold. Wanted Daemon. Wanted his kingdom. And when she was done with him, she would discard him just like she had Nova's father. The thought made Nova physically sick. Her hands clenched into fists, nails biting deep into her skin. She had to warn him. She had to. But how? She couldn't read. Couldn't write. Her education had ended the moment she was forced to run at 6 years old. Even if she broke her silence, if she sacrificed everything, would he even believe her? A king, listening to a mute servant girl? No. Worse, Morwen would recognize her instantly. And this time, she wouldn't leave her alive. Her thoughts spiraled as she watched Morwen laugh softly at something Daemon said, her fingers lingering just a little too long on his arm. That ring, glinted under the candlelight. The same ruby ring Morwen had worn the night she destroyed their lives. The same one that had pulsed with dark power as she cast the curse. It wasn't just jewelry. It was a weapon. A warning. As the night stretched on, Nova noticed the subtle cracks in Damon's composure. No one else would have seen it, but she did. The slight tension in his shoulders. The weariness creeping into his movements. The way his smile stopped reaching his eyes. He was growing tired of the performance. Finally, after a brief exchange with Lord Brennan, he stepped away. "I must retire earlier than planned," he announced. "Tomorrow's negotiations require a clear mind." Morwen's lips curved into a disappointed pout, but it didn't reach her eyes. "The night is still young, Your Majesty." "For some," Damon replied smoothly, already distancing himself. "We will continue tomorrow." He bowed, just enough to be polite, but not enough to surrender. Nova noticed that. And for a brief second, she felt relief. But the moment he left, everything changed. Morwen's charm vanished like a mask being torn away. In its place, cold intent, ruthless focus. Her gaze swept the room until it landed on a servant girl carrying wine. Irene. Quiet. Unremarkable. Easy to control. With a subtle motion, Morwen summoned her. Their conversation was brief, almost invisible, but Nova saw it. The vial. The gold. The exchange was too quick, too practiced. Then Irene left. And Nova followed. The servant corridors were nearly empty, the noise of celebration far behind them. Nova moved like a shadow, keeping just enough distance to avoid detection. But something was wrong. Irene wasn't heading toward the kitchens, or the servants' quarters. She was going up, to the royal wing. A place she had no right to be. Nova hesitated only for a second, then continued. At the top of the staircase, she saw Irene turn toward the king's private chambers. That was all the confirmation she needed. This wasn't coincidence. This was a pattern. The same pattern that had ended her father's life. Thinking fast, Nova grabbed a tray of fruit from a nearby station and followed. When the guard questioned her, she simply gestured toward Irene. It was enough. The door opened, and she stepped inside. The room was warm, lit by firelight, intimate in a way the grand halls never were. And there he was, Damon. No crown. No armor. Just a man. His shirt loose, his posture relaxed, his guard lowered. For the first time in 8 years, he didn't look like a king. He looked human. And it hit her harder than she expected. "Your evening wine, Your Majesty," Irene said. Nova saw it. The vial tipped. The poison slipped into the glass. And no one noticed. Except her. Time slowed. Damon reached for the goblet. And Nova moved. The glass tipped, wine spilling like blood across the table. Silence. Then, his eyes found hers. Not a passing glance. Not indifference. Recognition. Something deeper. Something dangerous. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice quieter now, but heavier. For a single, reckless moment, she almost answered. Almost broke everything. Almost chose him over her brothers. The realization hit like a blade. And she ran. The silence shattered like glass hitting stone. Nova froze mid-motion, her knife suspended above the cutting board as if time itself had stopped. "Your Majesty," the head cook stammered, hastily wiping his hands before bowing low. Nova didn't need to turn to know who stood behind her. She felt him before she saw him. Slowly, almost unwillingly, she turned. King Damon Blackthorne stood in the doorway, stripped of all royal display. No crown, no armor, just a dark tunic and an authority that didn't need decoration. Brennan and the steward stood beside him, both clearly unsettled by his sudden appearance. "Please, continue," Damon said calmly, his voice steady yet commanding. "I have no wish to disrupt your work." The kitchen resumed, but nothing felt normal anymore. Every movement became stiff, forced, watched. Nova lowered her head quickly, her hands trembling as she resumed cutting. "Don't look at me. Don't remember me." But even as she begged for invisibility, she felt him moving closer. He stopped behind her. Too close. "And here we prepare the morning fruits and vegetables, Your Majesty," the cook said nervously. Nova's breath caught. Ah, Damon murmured, his voice softer now, almost certain. There you are. The words hit harder than they should have. Like he had been searching. Like he knew. She kept her eyes down, refusing to meet his gaze, gripping the knife as though it anchored her to reality. You're the girl from last night, he continued, not asking, but stating it as fact. The room went still again, tension thick enough to choke on. Has she caused offense, Your Majesty? The cook rushed out, panic creeping into his voice. She will be punished if necessary. No offense, Damon said quietly. But then he stepped closer. Closer than he should have. And before she could react, his fingers brushed beneath her chin, lifting her face toward him. Nova forced herself not to flinch. Forced herself to meet his eyes. Up close, he was overwhelming, too real, too intense. The gold flecks in his amber gaze, the faint scar above his brow, the absence of any royal mask, he wasn't distant here. He was present. Focused. And something in his expression made her pulse race in a way that felt dangerous. You never told me your name, he said, his voice low, meant only for her. Her lips parted before she could stop them. The urge to answer surged through her like a breaking dam. She can't, the cook interrupted quickly. The girl is mute. Has been since she came here. Damon didn't look away. Is that so? He murmured, studying her like a puzzle he intended to solve. And what do you call her? Star, the cook replied. She's always looking at the stars. Star, Damon repeated, slower this time, as if testing how it felt. Nova's heart stumbled. Then everything changed. From today, he said calmly, Star will serve as my personal attendant. The room erupted in shocked silence. Nova didn't move. Couldn't. The knife remained clenched in her hand as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded. See that her things are moved, Damon added, already turning away. Then, pausing just slightly, he looked back at her. Until this afternoon. Star. And just like that, he was gone. Leaving behind whispers, stares, and the complete unraveling of her carefully controlled world. The royal chambers were nothing like she had imagined. Even after 8 years in the palace, stepping inside them felt like crossing into another world. As Damon's personal attendant, she now moved through spaces most servants never even glimpsed. But nothing unsettled her more than his bedchamber. It felt too personal. Too close. This is highly irregular, Brennan argued sharply, casting her a suspicious glance. A personal attendant should be trained. She has served here for 8 years, Damon replied evenly. But she's mute. I find silence refreshing. That ended the discussion. When they were finally alone, the silence stretched between them, not empty, but charged. Nova kept her gaze lowered, her heart pounding as his presence filled the space around her. Are you afraid of me, little star? He asked. She shook her head. Then why are you trembling? He moved closer again. Always closer. Look at me. It took everything she had, but she did. And something shifted. There it is, he murmured softly. I thought I imagined it. What? Her silence seemed to ask. That feeling, he said. You feel it too, don't you? After a pause, she gave the smallest nod. His smile wasn't triumphant. It was relieved. Good. I was beginning to think I'd lost my mind. The days that followed blurred together, but one thing became clear, this position gave her power. Not political power. Not status. But proximity. Control. She now watched every meal, every drink, every detail that could be tampered with. If Morwyn tried again, Nova would see it first. But something else was growing. Something far more dangerous. Him. It started with his gaze, how it lingered too long, how it darkened when she stepped closer. Then came the touches, brief, almost accidental, yet charged with something undeniable. By the 3rd week, it became unbearable. Helping him undress each night felt like torture disguised as duty. Her hands would tremble as she unfastened his clothing, her eyes refusing to look, yet always drawn back. And he noticed. He always noticed. Then one night, everything shifted again. As she reached for his shirt, his hand caught her wrist. Have dinner with me, he said. Not as a command. As something else. Not as my servant, as my guest. That night changed everything. The distance between them disappeared, replaced by something warmer, more dangerous. Candlelight softened the room, but nothing softened the tension. He watched her as she ate, as if memorizing every detail. And when she tried to leave, he stopped her. Stay. By the fire. Close enough that she could feel his warmth. Close enough that her control began to slip. When you're gone, he said quietly, I find myself waiting. His voice dropped. And when you're here, it's worse. His thumb brushed her lips, wiping away a drop of wine. But the touch lingered. And so did the heat. It became a pattern after that. Nights filled with silence, and everything unspoken inside it. Until one evening, she pulled away. You're avoiding me, he said. She denied it. Liar. But there was no anger in his voice, only something raw. Something real. He stepped closer. Slowly. Giving her time to run. She didn't. There's something between us, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. From the moment I saw you, something changed. His words weren't careful anymore. They were honest. I dream of you, he admitted. Even when you're not here. I feel you. Nova's chest tightened painfully. Like a part of me has always belonged to you. And in that moment, her silence felt heavier than ever. Because for the first time, she realized the truth might destroy them both. You feel it too, don't you? He pressed, bracing one arm against the bookshelf beside her, trapping her between him and the truth she was trying to escape. I can see it in your eyes. His gaze dropped to her lips, lingering there, unhidden, unrestrained. Then why are you fighting it? Because she had to. Because loving him could destroy him. Because everything she was hiding would burn his world to the ground. The words screamed inside her, but her lips remained sealed. She could only stand there, trembling, as his hand slowly rose to her face. Her eyes slipped closed without permission, a fragile sound escaping her throat, half breath, half surrender. Don't, he whispered, his voice rough now, dangerously close. Don't close your eyes. But it was too late. He leaned in anyway. And then, after 8 years of silent longing, everything broke. His lips met hers. Soft at first, almost hesitant. Then suddenly deeper, hungrier, like something long restrained had finally been unleashed. Heat surged through her, overwhelming, reckless, impossible to control. His body pressed against hers, and still it wasn't enough. She needed him closer, impossibly closer. The taste of him, wine and something darker, something wild, consumed her senses. It felt like drowning, and breathing at the same time. When they finally pulled apart, their foreheads rested together, both struggling for air. Star, he breathed, like the name meant more than it should. Nova trembled in his arms, torn between everything she had ever wanted, and everything she was about to lose. This moment, this fragile, stolen happiness, was everything she had dreamed of for 8 years. And yet, it was built on a lie she couldn't reveal. As he drew her back in, fingers tangling in her hair, she felt the truth settle deep inside her. She was already falling. And this time, there would be no saving herself. Candlelight flickered softly across Damon's face as he traced slow, absent circles across her palm. In moments like this, the world felt simple, almost dangerously so. She wasn't a cursed princess. She wasn't hiding from a witch who wanted her dead. She was just a woman being loved. But reality always returned. By day, they became strangers again. She was his silent attendant, nothing more. No stolen glances. No accidental touches. No proof of what existed between them. Even Morwyn, now a constant presence in the court, paid her little attention. Just another servant. Just another shadow. But Nova watched her closely, and saw the truth beneath the charm. Morwyn wasn't here to negotiate. She was circling Damon, studying him, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. What's troubling you? Damon asked one evening, sensing the tension she couldn't hide. Your thoughts feel distant. She shook her head and leaned closer, hiding what she couldn't explain. Because how could she? How could she tell him that the woman trying to win his trust had already destroyed her family once before? "You're exhausted," he said softly, turning her to face him. "You're pushing yourself too hard." If only he knew why. The final shirt was nearly finished. Freedom for her brothers was so close she could almost feel it. That night, after Damon fell asleep, Nova slipped quietly from his arms and disappeared through the hidden passageways. The palace fell away behind her as she entered the forest. Dark, familiar, alive. And then, they came. 6 wolves, massive and powerful, emerging from the shadows like something out of legend. At their head, silver-streaked, regal even in his cursed form, was Caden. Her brother. Nova dropped to her knees, arms open, and he came to her immediately, pressing his head against her shoulder with a soft, broken sound. The others followed, surrounding her, their presence both comforting and heartbreaking. Liam circled her excitedly, showing off fresh wolfsbane he had found, his spirit still untouched despite everything. Tears burned her eyes as she buried her hands in their fur. This was why she endured. This was why she stayed silent. Settling beneath the old oak, she worked by moonlight, stitching carefully, her brothers guarding her in a silent, unbreakable circle. And when dawn finally came, the shirt was nearly complete. But the moment she returned to the palace, something felt wrong. Guards stood outside Damon's chambers. "Star!" She turned to see Leora rushing toward her, breathless. "The king's been looking for you everywhere. He went to the kitchens himself at dawn." Nova's stomach dropped. Inside, Damon stood by the window, tension written across every line of his body. The moment he saw her, relief flooded his face. "Where were you?" he asked, crossing the room quickly. "I woke and you were gone." She lowered her eyes, unable to answer. "Star." Her name came out softer this time. "I thought something had happened to you." "Never." She shook her head, finally meeting his gaze. "Then where?" He pressed. "What pulls you away from me?" The weight of it all, exhaustion, guilt, fear, crashed over her at once. The room spun. Her body gave out. Darkness. When she woke, everything was quiet. Voices murmured nearby. "Exhaustion," the physician was saying. "Nothing more." "Are you certain?" Damon's voice was tight. "Completely." The bed dipped slightly as he sat beside her. "Not too close. Never too much." "Rest," he whispered, brushing her hair gently. "I'll be here." Later, when she stirred again, his voice reached her through the haze. "I never believed in mate bonds," he admitted quietly. "Thought they were nothing more than stories." A pause. "I was wrong." Her heart pounded as she lay still, listening. "From the moment I truly saw you, something changed." His voice softened. "I think you're my mate, Star." Tears burned behind her closed eyes. "I want you, completely. Not hidden. Not stolen moments." Everything she wanted, offered freely. And still, she couldn't take it. A week passed. Then came the night she had been dreading. The garden. The moonlight. The place where everything had begun. "Do you remember?" he asked quietly. "Before you. I was just a king." He stepped closer. "Now. I don't know who I am without you." Then, he knelt. "My wolf has chosen you," he said, his voice unguarded, raw. "My heart has chosen you." Nova's world shattered. "I want you as my queen." Everything inside her screamed to say yes. But she couldn't. She stepped back. And in that single movement, everything broke. "Why?" he asked, his voice cracking for the first time. She tried to explain without words, but how do you explain a curse, a past, a war, without a voice? "You think you're unworthy?" he asked desperately. "I don't care who you are." If only that were true. She shook her head again. "Then what is it?" He reached for her. "Whatever it is, we face it together." But she stepped out of reach. Because some truths don't just destroy love. They destroy everything. The hurt in his eyes didn't fade, it hardened. Then something worse replaced it. Acceptance. Cold, quiet acceptance. "I see," he said softly. the words cutting deeper than anger ever could. As if he had already begun to let her go. No, she wanted to scream. You're wrong. I love you more than I can survive. But the truth remained trapped behind her silence. Forgive me, he continued, his voice controlled, distant. I won't trouble you with this again. He turned away, every movement measured, every step carrying the weight of a man choosing dignity over heartbreak. Nova stood frozen, her hand lifting instinctively as if she could pull him back, as if she could undo what had just shattered between them. 6 more months. 6 more months before she could explain. Before she could beg him to understand. But love would have to wait, because first, she had brothers to save. 2 weeks passed like a slow, merciless punishment. 14 days of silence that felt heavier than the 9 years before it. She returned to the kitchens, no longer allowed near his chambers, no longer the quiet center of his world. The palace whispered. Some claimed she had insulted the king. Others insisted she had been caught spying. No one knew the truth, that she had destroyed her own happiness to protect the man she loved. But the hardest moments weren't the whispers. It was seeing him, passing him in halls, catching glimpses of what she had broken. His eyes had dulled, the warmth replaced with something distant, something empty. His face carried exhaustion, shadows beneath his eyes growing darker each day. And Morwen was always there now. Always watching. Always closer. Still, the distance gave Nova something she desperately needed. Time. Every night, she worked by candlelight, her fingers moving faster, sharper, more desperate. The 6th shirt was nearly complete. Freedom was within reach. Just a little longer. Just a few more nights. But then came the banquet. The grand hall blazed with candlelight, nobles gathered in silk and velvet, laughter filling the air like nothing was wrong. Nova, by cruel fate, was assigned to serve near the high table, within Damon's sight. She kept her head low, her movements precise, trying to disappear. She almost made it through unnoticed, until he stood. Esteemed guests, Damon announced, his voice carrying across the hall. Something in his tone felt wrong. Too flat. Too controlled. Nova looked up, and her blood turned to ice. His posture was rigid, unnatural. His eyes, empty. Silver light flickered faintly within them. Queen Morwen of Silverest has accepted my proposal of marriage. The words hit like a physical blow. Morwen rose beside him, triumphant, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Our union will bring prosperity, Damon continued, his voice devoid of life. The wedding will take place at the next full moon. Nova's tray slipped from her hands, crashing loudly against the floor. She knew that look. She had seen it before. On her father. Right before he was destroyed. Seize that girl. Morwen's voice cut through the chaos. Everything spiraled. Accusations spread like fire. Nova was branded a witch. The whispers turned into certainty. And Damon confirmed it. Yes, he said flatly. I was bewitched. That was the moment everything collapsed. They dragged her to the dungeon. Cold stone. Iron bars. Darkness. And then Morwen came. At last, she smiled, circling her like prey finally caught. The lost princess. Nova didn't react, but inside, her heart pounded. I knew it was you, Morwen whispered, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Those eyes, unforgettable. Every word was poison. Every smile a threat. She spoke of her father. Of his death. Of how Damon would follow the same fate. By our wedding night, she said softly, he'll be nothing but a shell. Nova lunged, but her body froze mid-motion, magic locking her in place. Still impulsive, Morwen mocked. Still weak. Then came the final blow. Your execution is at dawn. And worse. Your brothers will watch. The door slammed. And for the first time in years, Nova felt fear. Dawn arrived too quickly. The execution platform stood beneath a sky painted in gold and crimson. Nova stood bound, her dress simple, her fate sealed, yet hidden in her grasp were the 6 completed shirts. Her final weapon. Her final hope. Across the square, her brothers. Caged. Broken. Watching. And beside Morwen, Daemon. Fading. Dying. The sentence was read. The executioner stepped forward. Then. Chaos. The cages exploded open. 6 wolves surged forward. And Nova moved. The shirts flew into the air, landing perfectly. Light erupted. Blinding. Transforming. And when it faded, 6 princes stood before the world once more. Truth exploded across the crowd. Identities revealed. Lies shattered. But Nova didn't stop. She ran to Daemon. He collapsed into her arms. Too late. Too close to death. How do I save him? She demanded. And then, she understood. The bond. The unfinished bond. Without hesitation, she bit down on his neck. Claiming him. Choosing him. Power surged. Magic shattered. And Daemon came back. Star, he whispered. I love you, she finally said. And this time, nothing stopped her. Their bond ignited, complete, unbreakable. Morwen fell. The truth rose. And everything changed. 1 month later, 2 kingdoms stood united. Not by politics. Not by power. But by something stronger. Choice. Sacrifice. Love that survived silence. Nova stood no longer as a servant, but as a queen. And for the first time in 9 years, she spoke freely.